Hi friends! Today I'm going to show you how to do a brick stitch just in a straight line up here, and then I'll show you how to fill a shape with brick stitch in this little rectangle down here. So I'm going to use two contrasting colors of thread. You can kind of see them back here, this like blue color and this yellow color. So as always, I start everything with just a normal boring knot. So I'm using all 6 strands of thread here. Embroidery thread is made of 6 individual strands, and depending on how fine of work you want to do, you can use anywhere from 1 strand to 6. So I'm going to use all 6 for this tutorial, and you can see that that gives me like pretty thick floss. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Alrighty, so brick stitch is essentially a textured version of back stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and start and just back stitch a line here with some, pretty long stitches. Like this isn't like very fine stitch work. I didn't draw a straight line on here, so you're gonna have to forgive me if this line is really wonky, but then I'll show you how to do brick stitch with a mild curve, I guess, if it's not straight. But yeah, so my first row here, I'm just gonna do a straight row of just back stitch. So I have a back stitch tutorial, but just in case you haven't seen it yet, I'm essentially going a little bit forward with my needle, coming up, and then I'm going back into the same hole of the stitch prior. So I'm just going to do like a few more stitches, and then I'm going to change to that yellow color and show you where the brick, stitch, the name of the stitch kind of comes from. Here is my yellow thread. I'm going to go ahead and start over here, essentially in line with where I started with the blue thread. So the brick and brick stitch comes from the texture that you create with this stitch. And essentially what you want to think of is every altered line, you're looking for the middle of the stitch of the line above. It's easier to explain when you're seeing what I'm doing. So this blue stitch is an entire length of a stitch. I'm going to go to the middle of that stitch, and that's going to be my first stitch for the yellow. So now I'm just going to keep looking for the middle of stitches and keep doing like a back stitch situation. So right here, I'm in the middle of that upper blue stitch. I'm going to back stitch into that prior yellow stitch. And I'm going to keep doing that along this whole line, and you'll see it'll start to look like little bricks. The way to make your brick stitch look best is to have pretty even stitches in terms of the length, which can take a lot of practice. You can even see with the quick stitches I did here, they're not all completely even, but that's okay. You're still going to get that brick-like texture. I always find that when I start to fill a space with brick stitch, I need to make sure that my stitches are long enough, because if you have really short stitches, you'll find that it's kind of difficult to show this texture really well if you have tiny stitches, unless you're using less thick thread. So like if you're using like 2 strands of thread instead of the full 6, like smaller stitches can look okay, but it just totally depends. You need to kind of just play around with the thickness of your thread and the length of your stitches to get a good idea of what's going to look best. So you see I'm about to finish this line, and I'm going to do another line with the blue thread, and then after that I'm going to do the next line again with blue, just to show you what it looks like when you're not alternating colors. I wanted to alternate colors just to really show you how to get like in the middle of that stitch above. So when I do the next row, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in so you can really see it. I can't zoom in with the app that I use to take captions, so I usually zoom in with just my normal video settings. So that's when I like to overlay some like nice relaxing lo-fi hip hop, my favorite. So hopefully that'll be nice and fun, and you'll be able to see this like brick-ish texture a lot better. It makes itself really apparent when you have multiple lines. It's a really fun stitch to use to fill in spaces, and yeah. So I'm almost done with this line. Welcome back, friends. So hopefully you saw how I created this nice brick-like texture with this brick stitch. So now I'm going to go ahead and do this brick stitch fill, and I'm just going to fill in this rectangle. Effectively, it's the same as what I did above here, just confined within this space. But I'm only going to use this blue color thread so you can really appreciate how even when you use the same color, you still get this really nice brick-like texture. So I'm going to do a little time lapse to show you what that looks like, and yeah, hopefully it's helpful. Alright, so here's what the back of brick stitch looks like. It's essentially, like I said, just like back stitch. I just wanted to show you how I'm going to finish this off. So this is pretty much how I finish everything, is with knots. I just tuck it under a group of stitches, and then I'll put my needle through this like little loop that forms like this, and I'll pull. And yeah, hopefully that was helpful. So let me know if you have any questions and if there are any other stitches that you'd like to learn.